Hello and welcome to the second Maya tips and tricks tutorial. I'm Alexis Centeno, daytime lab assistant tutor here at Magic. And in the previous workshop or tutorial, I discussed, quickly how to set up things in Maya and some easy navigational tips here and there. For this one, I'm going to show you how to properly set up image planes. There's many different ways to do this. I'm showing you my own preferences. Each have their own pros and cons, but I'll leave it up to you to decide. So if you happen to see another way how to do this on YouTube or your professor show you a different way, I'm in no way saying that it's wrong. In Maya, there's a million ways to do stuff. It's just this happens to be my own preference. And I think when you see how it works, it might become yours as well. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to learn how to create and set a project. That's very important for organizational purposes, especially when you're working with image planes, because if you just make a project wherever you want and have a folder with all your references and just have Maya look for it, it'll work in that moment. But the moment you leave and go home or you come back to work to Magic, it's not going to work. And you're going to have to spend all your time trying to find the files again, and it's a big mess. And the more you work, the more you have textures, the more you have your animations, you have a bunch of other things saved and set up. You want to have it in one folder that you can move from place to place, right? So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So for organizational purposes, the first thing you want to do when you're going to make something, and I'm not talking just when you're fooling around, like when you're just fooling around and practicing, you don't have to go through all this process. But when you're going to actually use something for a project, this is how you would start. You come here to File, and you go to Project Window, and you hit New, and you name it. I'm going to call this Phone Test. And this is where it's going to be its location. I don't want that there. I want to put on the desktop, and I usually select the desktop when I'm working on a computer that's not my own. So if you're a Magic student or you happen to be working, at a job or whatever, or any place that's just temporary, you want to save it in a location you can easily remember to get it, because remember, here at Magic, the computers get wiped at the end of the day. So I'm just going to hit accept. The defaults are fine. There's no reason to go into them just yet. So we'll just hit accept. And now it's time to set the project. And when you set a project, Maya knows that for now on, while you're working at this moment, everything that you're trying to get to or want to save to is going to be in one of the folders that it just created in its own directory. So I'm going to go set project, and I'm going to find mine, and I see it iPhone test, and I'm going to say set. So I know nothing looks like anything phenomenal happened. It looks like it's the same thing that's been going on, but something did change, and I'm going to show you really briefly. If I go over to the folder right here, you're going to see how it created all these different little folders. And they mean something. You don't have to care about each and every one. As you move further in your skills in Maya, you will use more of these folders. But for now, the only ones that really matter to us are scenes and the source images. And the source images are just that, sources. They're your references. So for what I'm going to be working on, I'm just going to briefly take the images that I collected on the internet. They're just random phone pictures. Well, not totally random. They have a purpose. I'll show you what they are. I'm just going to take them, and I'm just going to copy them into here. And that's that. So Maya knows now that my source images come from there. So let's create their image planes. So basically, when we're modeling and we look for references, you need specific ones, right? So if you're going to bring them into Maya and you're going to make something basic like this phone here, I just need a front, a side, and a back. It shows me everything that I need about the phone. That's enough information. I don't need anything more. I don't need a perspective view per se, or top view or anything, because the size is the same pretty much. So it's not as simple as just dragging and dropping these in, because we don't know if they're the same size. And if you put images that are not in the same size, it creates more work for you. So in order to set image planes properly in Maya, we need to come over here and we need to go to orthographic, new, and I want to create a separate front. The reason why we don't just want to attach the image to the front camera that we already have is that I want to be able to switch back and forth if I need to, because eventually you get to a point when you're modeling where you don't need the image planes anymore and you really don't want to have to worry about that. Okay. So now that I created that, first we need to bring in our outliner, which is really handy. So it didn't look like that actually worked, so I'm just going to go to, so in order to create the front camera, I'm just going to go to orthographic, new, front, and you see how I created it right there, and I'm going to go to view, image plane, import image. And you notice, because we already set the project, how Maya just instantly knew to look in the source images, and I actually have the images that I put together based on these. Because just finding references on the internet is not good enough. They have to be the same size and they have to work. So it's just a matter of sticking them in Photoshop, putting them in by, I used a 2K size, but you can use 1K, 2K. It doesn't really matter the size of the page. It's just they all have to be aligned and be in the same place. That way the item will look properly in 3D. Will look the same way in 3D. So since obviously I named it, so I'm going to just click on the front picture and it showed up. Yay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click on the image here and I'm going to make a few changes. And one of them that we really want to do is, you notice this translate Z and it has this number. The problem is that I'm trying to model and I can't see the grid, and you really need to see the grid while you're modeling. So I need to push it behind the grid. So in order to do that, I'm just going to come here to Z and I'm going to hit -60 and hit enter, and boom, I got it right there. And I'm going to do one more thing. I'm just going to simply hit W to just move this little guy right above the line there. And I'm not going to move it left to right because it's already centered, I think, pretty well. So we're just going to leave it at that. And I personally, this is again just a preference, but sometimes that white is a little too much. So I like to just lower it a bit. You don't have to. That's not a requirement. You can leave it alone. It's just fine. And we're going to do the same thing for the side view. So I'm going to go to orthograph again, panels, orthographic, new, side. I always get this part a little bit screwed up if it's right or left, so I just pick one and then I'll fix it if I'm wrong. So I just hit right. We're going to do the same thing, view, image plane, import image, and I'm going to pick the side one. Okay. And same thing, just going to go to image plane 2. Probably will be a good idea to name these. So, but we'll do that later. I'm just going to take this guy right here, do the same thing we did. Notice how the translate X is at 995. I don't want that. So we're going to hit -60 and boom, we're behind it. And the same thing, we're just going to make sure that we align this guy just right. And now I'm going to do the same thing in the attribute editor right here. Or you could just hit Control A, by the way. If I'm here and I just hit Control A, it just instantly takes me to the attribute editor. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to mess with the alpha just a bit, just to lower it, just transparency a bit. And now I'm going to go to panels perspective, and now you can see what we've done. Now I know sometimes you see people that they put it like this. And I'm going to be honest with you, I never understood this type of modeling, because how can I see what the heck I'm doing if my image planes are in my way? So I personally like them away from me. If you like them to be right in the crosshairs, by all means do so. It's just a preference. If it helps you to model, then do whatever it takes to model. Now, sometimes based on the item you're modeling, like say people, the way that their arms are back in a T-pose, you may need a top view, you may need a back view, especially if you're modeling something like a car where the front and the back are very different. But, I mean, it's an iPhone. It's a phone, It's the only thing different going on is the camera I do have for that, so I'll show you just in case, but I mean really you don't need it. You could just make another front camera and then put the back view, or you could always just model it by eye if it's a simple thing to make it. It's up to you. It's your decision. But for now, I think this should be enough to start with. Now we have everything we need. Now, the one thing that can happen is, since they're here, you might accidentally grab these guys, and that gets annoying after a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit here in the channel box editor, and I'm going to go right here to this little tab, display, and I'm going to go to layers, and I'm going to say create layer from selected. So obviously I have to make sure that I select both image planes. And what it's going to do is it's going to put them on their own layer, and then I'm going to come here to this empty slot here, and click it till it goes to R. And what that means is that it'll show up, but I can't click on it anymore, which is great. And then when I don't want them anymore, I can always hide them. So this works for anything in Maya, anything that you want to have in the scene, but you don't want to grab anymore for whatever reason. You can either stick in the layer or you can always hide it another way. I'll show you how to hide things and show things later. So this is how you set up the image planes. Now we're pretty much good to go.